Welcome to Medical Sales U. I'm your host, Dave Sterrett. And today's guest is Jacob Tabor. He has a history of working for a variety of companies in the diagnostic space, also in pharmaceutical sales, and also with some innovative testing with cancer. And I just want to thank all of you for joining the program, for listening in, for following us on Instagram, subscribing to us on YouTube. And again, for those of you who are interested, maybe you're not in medical sales, but you want to break in, check out our program, Medical Sales U, where we are helping people to break into the industry in 8 weeks who have no experience. And so we want to help you to break in, whether that's device or pharmaceutical sales, or perhaps you're interested in innovative genetic testing. Jacob, thank you so much for joining this show.
It's a pleasure, David. Thank you.
Well, Jacob, tell us a little bit about what you do right now.
Yeah, so I'm in the precision oncology space, more recently in the screening side. So we use blood to look for genetic mutations to either identify early cancer, colorectal cancer specifically in patients right now. But the company was really founded on the idea that blood really holds a lot of the answers in cancers that people face, unfortunately, and looking for mutations that allow physicians, medical oncologists to treat those in a much more effective way versus just the default that was a couple of years ago of chemotherapies and things that are really, really harsh to the body. So it allows them to be a sniper versus a shotgun, if you will.
Yes. And that company that Jacob is talking about is Guardant Health. Is that correct? Guardant?
Correct. Yep.
Guardant Health. Guardant has really had a great reputation, a leader. I'm in the space. My full-time job is, in pharmaceutical sales. I can't talk a lot about it, but we appreciate all of us in cancer. And when we talk about precision medicine, it's exactly what Jacob is talking about. It's not giving just a general treatment to all patients, but it's understanding that every single cancer patient has a unique genetic makeup. And I think where Guardant has really had an extraordinary reputation for years in their innovation is in the liquid blood testing. Tell us a little bit about why would someone, what's the advantages of our blood tests over a tissue? Of course, there's benefits to both, but talk to us a little bit about blood testing.
Yeah, and there are advantages to both. I mean, really what they're finding is that liquid and tissue go hand in hand. There's pros and cons. So things that the tissue may miss because there's a limited amount of tissue, for example, in a biopsy. You're only looking at what you can physically take out of the body, whereas blood, you're looking at necrotic tissue that's floating around that's coming from those dead cancer cells. And so, again, limitations to both. Using them concurrently, it has allowed medical oncologists to find some of the answers that they need that they could have otherwise missed had they only done one.
Yes, and that's extraordinarily exciting. And with blood, just being less invasive, a quick turnaround time. I know Guardant has had a great reputation for the fast turnaround time. Before we, jump into some of your current roles, maybe you could take us back to you as a college student, Jacob. Take us way back. As a college student, did you know that you were going to be in medical sales?
No, not a clue. And frankly, all the way up to the day of graduation and probably a couple of years after, I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And I think that's a common story, right? I mean, we go to college, we think we want to do something, or we don't really even know what's out there. And so we enter the job market and kind of let that mold us and kind of identify what maybe we want to do a little bit more. I was more of a circumstance. So I went into the financial world right out of college and the recession hit. And so I was left with a college degree and no idea what to do with it. And kind of happened.
What was your degree at?
Yeah, so I've got a degree in business administration. And I studied finance pretty heavily as well. Had all of the licensing, Series 6, Series 7s. And like I said, 2008, 2009 hit. And quite frankly, I was 21 years old and had no idea what I was actually doing, or how to emotionally navigate that landscape that was just chaos, that I frankly didn't have any real world experience in. I mean, I was 21 years old. And so took a...
So where did you go from there? You're 21, the financial crisis hits, 2008. What do you do?
Yeah, so I think that this is really a story that has molded a lot of my career. I give myself a day to feel sorry for myself when things fall apart, and then I got to get to work, to action. I'm big on finding a solution if there's a problem, and that's really kind of how I lived my life. And so took a job that got me into a field I thought I might be interested in. It was a customer service rep job with a company called Lincare, and I knew probably in about 2 or 3 months that the work I was doing was not challenging or rewarding. And I think that they acknowledged that too. So that's how I broke into my first sales gig in the medical sales, selling oxygen and CPAP devices.
Very cool. And so you're selling oxygen and you're selling CPAP. How long did you do that for?
Let's see. So in that position, I was there for, probably 3 or 4 years. I was in the DME world really for about 10 years total, I think. But finding different opportunities. There is more to DME sales than just CPAPs and oxygen. And so I try to find those opportunities. Got into advanced wound care sales with those companies. It was kind of an and-if product. And I found that I could actually do really well. And it was a lot more interesting than selling oxygen and CPAP. And so I really chased that down and became a flagship site, I guess, for wound pumps and advanced wound care. And again, building my repertoire and feeling a little bit more challenged and found more happiness, if you will, more fulfillment in doing that without really even having to change companies.
Yes. Yeah. And I first, met you, my very first job. I was in the nonprofit sector. I had degrees in religion, philosophy. I was a teacher. I was going on mission trips. In my first job, it was Bud Bender who gave me the opportunity to come, work at Novosom. He had reached out to a friend of mine, Jared, and I knew I was going to go up against people who had some sales experience. And so my friend, coached me to have a business plan, a brag block. And that was my first, opportunity, first time getting in sales. And that's where I saw your name always in the top 10. Of sales. So I saw your name up at the top, and I think that's where we first connected. Later connected on LinkedIn, and so it's fascinating. Is everybody's career path is different. I think when I was with Novosom, I mean, they gave me the first year a base of 70, and I think I made about 120. Yeah. I wasn't getting rich, but for a first year of making about 120, it was a good
that's good
good
money.
year. Yeah,
That's
I
good.
think I was ranked like number 10 and about number 10 in the company, and it was a great experience. And like you, I kind of leveraged that that experience to eventually go into something more sophisticated, more innovative, and got into cancer as well. What was your journey like? How did you go from getting into cancer diagnostics?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I think resilience is a big part of my story. So from DME, went into Bud Bender, actually called me one day and said, "Hey, you've been selling a lot of our tests for us and we're not paying you for it. I'd be interested in you maybe coming over here and representing us in a much bigger way." And so that was with Novosom. Selling at-home polysomnography, really kind of breakthrough technology for a lot of markets where patients were able to do their obstructive sleep apnea testing at home. And I took that opportunity. I ran with it. It was a niche market. It was fun, and worked my way into a leadership role there, and just had an absolute blast. In a lot of ways, was able to build out my own team, and I inherited a couple of people. But man, we had a lot of fun, and we were really, really going all steam ahead. And then the wind was taken out of our sails. There was an acquisition that didn't go through, And unfortunately, in this world, that happens quite often. And so I was left with I think 8 people at the time that I was responsible for. So tried to do my best to make sure they landed on their feet, and then took an opportunity in, I guess I was in pharmaceuticals at that point, and specialty pharmaceuticals with no experience. And make no mistakes, pharmaceuticals, diagnostics, testing is very, very different. And so had to learn a new skill set very, very quickly, while also getting my MBA and then being a father to a new child, and trying my best to be a good husband too. So a lot of pokers in the fire. And I think during that experience really learned that I was capable of doing really hard things, and really built my endurance and grit through that time.
Wow. Very cool. So you're working on your MBA, then you're promoted in management, and then you do this transition, you get into pharmaceutical. What were you selling in pharmaceutical sales?
Yeah, so the company was Allergan at the time. I went in, I think I was in GI specialty for, what were the drugs? Diarrhea medicine, basically. Constipation medications. I was there for about 4 months, and then I transferred, promoted into specialty CNS. And so selling atypical antipsychotics, pretty heavy duty antidepressant type medicines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And well, now, what was it like getting your MBA? Did you find it was helpful? Between you and me, I'm about a third of the way through my MBA at Johns Hopkins, maybe a little past that. Part of me doesn't even, I have my full-time job, and then on the side, I'm always talking to leaders like you, and then I'm helping other people get in. There are some things I like about it, but there's always a challenge. For you, what was most beneficial about getting an MBA? Was there some great takeaways? What was your analysis of the whole thing?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think the best part for me was the ability to network. And I'm really glad that I got my MBA later in life after I'd had some experiences, because so much of the real learning, it was a very small group. It was about 11 people in our cohort. It just brought just a wealth of knowledge and experience that make it very, very applicable to the lessons that we were learning. So it wasn't about the book work. It was about the conversations, discussions, and banter that kind of took place in that environment. And so I think you asked if I thought the MBA was worth it, or I would say yes. And the relationships that I built, I don't know that it's really helped promote me in my career. But I went into it knowing that I wanted to get my MBA for myself, just so I didn't have regret not doing it later in life.
Yes.
But the experience.
So you were in person. Was it like a night program or weekend, or what was that like?
It was a professionals program, and so you had to be in an industry for quite a while. I don't know what the cutoff was, but you had to come in with experience. And so we would meet I don't know, maybe it's 2 days a month, and then the rest was weekly coursework virtually. But during that time, COVID hit, and so we were about maybe a third of the way through, and it converted to completely virtual.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Yes, most of my work is online that I've done. But even with my most recent job, it was someone in my cohort, project who worked at Johnson & Johnson who actually was an internal referral. So you never know with those. And I wasn't looking to move my last company, really. I wasn't, eagerly. I was doing very well there. So it is interesting that you bring up the relationships built. Okay, and then COVID hits, and then you go to your current company, correct? Guardant.
No. So from pharma, I was recruited into a company called Myriad. And I was doing coaching. Yeah, so it was a short stint. It was kind of a blip on my professional resume, I guess. But man, I learned a lot, and I learned that I loved genetics, and learned that I had a passion for genetics, and really looking at what made us who we are and how that affected our health, and how that it can be either a hindrance or be helped with modern technology and medicines. And so I was there for about 7 months. Company went through a layoff process, and I was a part of that, unfortunately. But because I had built a network, and I have my rule of feel sorry for yourself for a day and then find a solution, I had 2 job offers within about 2 weeks with
Good
these
for
very
you.
reputable companies. One of which is Guardant that I chose to accept that offer, and I'm very grateful and blessed, honestly, that they took a chance on me because I didn't have oncology experience, and I was brought in to launch a very new, very niche product for them, and so that's where I've been for the last about 3.5 years.
That is great. For our listeners who are intrigued by, genetic testing, just the innovation in precision medicine, maybe they have a story, maybe they have a loved one who was affected by, breast cancer, colon cancer, lung cancer, whatever. Do you have any advice for that person who maybe has some sales experience, but not medical sales? How would they break into? Do you have any advice of how they might be able to break in to selling, becoming effective in genetic testing? Do you have any advice of ways that they can prepare right now to really shine in the interview process, and some things that might help them to stand out?
Yeah, it's another really good question. I think this doesn't apply to just precision medicine. I think it applies really to any position in sales that you're going for, or really any position in general. But it's be prepared. I mean, know who you are and what you want. That's one of the questions that was asked of me a long, long time ago. And I don't know that I was able to answer that for a long time. And so who are you? What do you want? If you can answer those 2 questions with confidence, and then know why you want what you want, and how you plan on getting what you want, it really kind of creates a formula for how you think about things and how you approach things. And if you can, again, confidently articulate that in an interview process or when you're talking to somebody, it goes a long way. Nobody's looking for someone who knows all the answers. It's great if you have the answers, but when I'm hiring somebody, for example, because I run a team now, I want to know that they know how they've been successful, why they've been successful, and what they've done in order to do that. Some of those examples in my position are going to come from a lot of experience. But for the people who don't have that experience, I would actually challenge. I think you probably have more experience than you realize. And don't be afraid to draw on that, but be able to go granular with it.
Would you say from your experience of hiring people that it's been the ones who really stood out in the interview process who were your top sales reps, or is it sometimes a surprise where someone, you're not even sure if you're going to hire them and then they end up thriving, or vice versa, someone really shines in the interview process and yet they suck as a rep? What has been your experience in that you've learned as a hiring manager?
Yeah, I don't know that I've really been surprised. I like to think that I'm a pretty good judge of character. Not that I'm batting 1,000 by any means, but I like to hire the person, not the paper. And so a lot of times paper can get you an interview, or who you know gets you the interview, but it's your responsibility to really capitalize on that opportunity. And so I think that the people who just possess the characteristics that make anyone successful in anything that they do, and that's that grit mentality, that's that growth mindset, that's that ability to take criticism, whether given harshly or not. Maybe it's just coaching, but being able to take that and see the opportunities for growth in that is really what I'm looking for. And it's somebody who can teach me something too, who's got the confidence to be able to speak up and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about this, but why? And that goes back to that solutions focused mentality that I have. I make no claims that I know everything, because I certainly don't. And so people who can communicate what their thoughts are and why they think it's a good idea go a long way with me when I'm interviewing people.
I like that, Jacob. Can you think of someone that you have hired that really stood out in the interview process, and they've also has stood out as an excellent rep, team member? And what was it, if you can reflect back, what were some things that they did that really stood out in the interview process, that really separated them from some of the other candidates?
Passion for the purpose. And I've got several people on my team right now that I think all of them I could with confidence say have passion for the purpose of what we're doing. There's one that stands out particularly. There were a lot of ups and downs. I mean, it was certainly a roller coaster during the interview process with this individual, but they knew what they wanted. They passed up on other opportunities, just waiting the chance to get this position if it came available to them, was offered. But never fall through their passion or their why, and that went a long way with me when I made my final decision. And then appropriate follow up. There's a fine line between being a pest and being persistent, and this person navigated that very, very well by texting, maybe news articles that came out as we kind of developed the products that we were going to be hiring for, and just showing interest and being engaged, but also not blowing up my phone or email incessantly saying, "Hey, are you going to offer me the job?" It was never, "Hey, are you going to offer me the job?" It's, "Hey, I'm still interested in this position. This is why. I saw this on the news, or I talked to this person, or I had this conversation," and it's just made me that much more excited. And so that went a long way with me, and I think they're going to do very, very well here.
Jacob, that's an excellent point. I like that. And I think that's really helpful for us who've been in the industry for a long time. Maybe we want to be promoted, or for those who are looking to get in. And this win is to be in touch, with the hiring manager, but adding value to that. Not just saying, "Are you going to hire me?" or "Have you made a decision yet?" But I like it if they came across an article, maybe a press release or something that was, that brought value to that. Maybe they came across a pharmaceutical company that talked about, the need for accurate testing to properly treat and diagnose patients with colon cancer or lung cancer, whatever it was. I do think that is a great, and it's that balance too. Okay, let's think about this. For people that are learning, like, what would be the best way to follow up? I mean, I definitely think a thank you note, an email immediately afterwards. And then if they don't hear back, any thoughts about that? I know it's not necessarily a formula. Sometimes it's just a gut instinct, but do you have any thoughts about that for those who are maybe they've applied, they had an interview, they thought it went well, they sent that initial email, now they haven't heard back, and they're wondering, am I still being considered?
Yeah, that's a tricky question to answer, because I think that so many times we try to make that a formula.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say, I think you mentioned this, trust your instinct.
Yes.
Definitely send a thank you note, because there have been people that I've moved forward with. I had two equally yoked candidates, and then I got a thank you note from one of them, and it was just that little extra step that was this deciding factor. In the thank you notes, I mean, don't be formulaic with, "Hey, we had this conversation. These things stood out. This made me excited about the position." Versus, "I'm qualified XYZ, really robotic." I mean, I get 1,000 of those, during the interview process, and it's the ones that are personal and can tie back to different parts of the conversation that are the ones that, frankly, I actually read. And so I would say just be real, be authentic in that thank you note. As far as following up, if you don't hear back, this may not be advice that people want to hear. But there's a lot going on. There's a lot of candidates coming through. And I would say, don't lose your self-respect or dignity chasing something that may not happen. Trust your instinct on it. Send a couple follow-ups, check in, but don't put all of your eggs in that basket, for example. Reflect, analyze, see where things maybe didn't go the way you thought they did, and be honest with yourself. And then seek other opportunities, with that one still maybe being the wind. But I would say, know your value, know what you bring to the table. And again, if you can't answer who am I and what did I want, and you're not able to reflect back on that interview and be able to say, "Hey, I did that really, really well," then that's a growth opportunity. Reflect and take it to the next interview.
So good, Jacob. It's just confidence. I think me being in sales, it helped me win my wife, right? It's almost like this early for those who are single and dating. It's like, you need to respect yourself. You don't want to come across too desperate, but at the same time, it's appropriate to stay in touch. But in those early stages, you're not married to that one company. It's good to have a healthy balance. For me, that number 7, I don't know, for some people, is to have a number of other companies that is on their list that maybe they've applied to or they're in the interview process.
Yeah.
And they're not just waiting around just for that one. And I think that's, you've given a lot of great insights. And, as we wrap this up, maybe Jacob, just for fun, you could tell us a little bit about yourself. By the way, tell us what's behind you there. It looks like some ancient weapons you have behind us.
Yeah, no, I thought that might come up, David. So I'm Native American. And so I flint knap. I do some primitive weapons building. This is a bow that I built when I was in 8th grade, I think, from a quartered log. And so that was pretty neat. I had this piece commissioned, and then this piece was gifted to me, actually. But I've got some more pieces on the way. Never want to lose sight of my heritage. It's pretty valuable to me. And so, and then I guess more of a cliche, having this behind me reminds me to be a warrior for anything that I do, be passionate about what I do, and that I come from a long line of warriors.
Wow. I love that, Jacob. You're a warrior, and you have a history come from a great long line of warriors. And that's how we are with our, we have challenges in our day to day, and you're definitely leading, you're working for a great company. And just one other question, for fun, are you going on vacation? Have you been on vacation this summer?
Yeah. So I'm a mountain guy. I like snow. I like cold, but I'm married to someone who likes the sand and beach. And that has also gone into my daughter, who, for whatever reason, I think the last 5 years we've gone to Florida, different locations in Florida, but we went there in May and had a pretty good time down in Marco Island. But no future plans. I mean, I've got a full plate, so I'm going to run hard and fast through the end of the year. And we'll see what next year holds. Maybe I can persuade them to go to Colorado or something to ski.
Well, thank you. That sounds great. Well, thank you so much for joining the show. I hope you get that skiing trip in. And just thanks for sharing your insights. I think you're going to help a lot of people just with the content. And for those of you who want to connect with Jacob, look him up on LinkedIn. If you will learn about the company he's working with, Guardant, look them up. Extraordinary innovation with Guardant Health. Yeah. And for those of you who want to break into the industry, you want to learn about medical sales, you have no experience, and you'll allow me to personally coach you to shine in the interview process. We're helping individuals reach out to me, and we just thank you all for listening to this episode. You guys have a great day.
Thank you.